Right, good afternoon, everyone. So if you're not a speaker, just one last time, please switch off your camera and there'll be an opportunity to switch it on at the end. Thank you very much. So it's amazing to see so many people here today. It's a very popular topic, hence the reason we are visiting it today. So my name is Caroline Logan. I am Programme Director for BuildForce, reporting to you from a gloriously sunny Dorset day. So I hope wherever you are, the sun is shining for you too. So delighted today to have two of our ambassadors with us and also a previous BuildForce candidate to talk to you about net zero and sustainability, a massive growth future area. So we're delighted to talk about this today. So sit back, enjoy. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Caroline. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the BuildForce Virtual Career Chat. I'm Angela Forbes. So it's a pleasure to welcome you. So recently on our virtual chat, we spoke about the triple bottom line, where businesses are giving environmental and social outcomes as much importance as financial results. So we did a deep dive into social sustainability on a previous chat a few weeks ago. And this is where we make a positive impact to people in the communities that we build. So today the spotlight is on environmental sustainability. So we will look at everything across the day job, the entry requirements, the opportunities available and the progression within it. Now our veterans continue to join us and to share their insights into their new career in construction and the wider built environment. And today we are joined by Andrew Dinnan, Head of Defence Sustainability with Mace, and Andrew Warrington, Head of Design with Morgan Sindall Construction. So we'll take questions at the end. Feel free to write in any comments as we go, but without further ado, we'll kick off. So Andy, we'll hand to you. We'll all switch our cameras off.
Thanks very much, Angela. Yeah, so I'm Andy Dinnan, and I work for Mace Group, and we are a program and project delivery consultancy and construction company with essentially two engines in the company, construction and consult, and I'm on the consult side. And within consult, we do program and construction management, project and PMO planning, cost and consult, commercial and business advisory. All very interesting things, but I suppose the main point around why we're talking today and why I went to Mace is that in 2020, Mace, as an international company, achieved its ambition of becoming net zero. And for me, that was sort of an important indicator of the company that I was seeking to join and what it was the company was about and its ambitions. So my journey, my background, I was 21 years in the RAF, and I left in the summer of 21. For those of you who remember, that was the second summer of COVID. So I had already spent essentially a year working from home, and got very used to, well, as everyone was, I suppose, working on Teams, working remotely, and working through the internet essentially, and so that I think in a way helped me through the transition because everything was done online. I think it was easier to talk to people, or not to talk to people. It was easier for people to find some time to talk to you when it was online, as opposed to trying to arrange to meet up for a cup of coffee somewhere, or and things like that. It could all be done remotely. And I think my first point at this stage would be to say, I found that everyone is your friend now. Every cat badge doesn't matter, no matter how much abuse they gave you when you were serving. Every cat badge is your friend because every cat badge has gone through resettlement and experienced what was going on. I mentioned so Mace is net zero, and I did have some friends who were working at Mace already, so I was aware of it. My background in defence was not obviously in climate change and sustainability. It wasn't one of the things that I looked at. or sorry, was an expert in, for want of a better phrase. And I think the point is, from that is you should take the time to consider what you want to do in the widest possible sense. I was very lucky at the time. I just completed a course at Cranfield University, and I had access to their careers advisors, and was able to go through some sort of fairly strange exercises in trying to work out what it was that motivated me. But ultimately, they got me to the right result, and got me to where I am now. And I think, my next point would be do seek professional advice. And I think the fact that you're on this call and you've reached out to BuildForce means that you've probably already recognised that any advice is worth gaining on that. So, consider what it is you want to do and the sector you want to go into. And also consider the company. As I said, Mace had achieved net zero, and that's a real indicator for me. So, the sector and the company is important. I'd also then, whilst I'm sure location is at the top of your list of things that are important when you're going through transition and picking a job, I think in the construction industry, in the project industry especially, don't gamble everything on a location of a project, because sure enough, within a couple of years, the project changes, and you will move on. So I wouldn't pin all your hopes just because there's a company doing a specific project in a specific location. In fact, thinking back now, I got offered lots of interviews for companies working on HS2. And that's obviously not where it was when I left, which was only a couple of years ago. So I think do your research into the company that you're looking to go into, and the ethos of it, especially around sustainability. It has become a bit of a buzzword. There's lots of companies there, they're doing it. But I think you really need to try and scratch the surface if it's the thing you want to do, to really understand, is this company really doing climate change and sustainability, or is it just greenwashing, as you may have heard the phrase used. Use LinkedIn if you can find somebody who works at the company. There'll always be somebody, whether it's one or two links on, to reach out to and really get a feel for it, because it's not, as Angela said, it's not the traditional bottom line, and some companies talk about it but don't actually really do it. I think that also leads me on to my next point, which is, coming from defence, you may not have the qualifications you need to move into a sustainability role immediately. So I would encourage you to consider, if there's a company that you really want to work for and they've got some sustainability roles that you're really interested in, but they don't have that particular role open or available to you, look at taking a role at that company. It costs a lot of money to recruit, and companies will always rather recruit internally than bring in externally. So you, as an internal candidate, will always be easier for you to move, and definitely consider that as a pathway to the job you want. And then added to that, I would also say your currency at the moment is in defence. That's where your expertise is. You've probably got a security clearance level. That has a value. Certainly when I joined Mace, it was fully my intention to work in the defence business unit for a couple of years, get a good reputation, and then move out and move on into one of the other areas. That hasn't happened, but that's not through not being available. That's because the opportunity came for me to build the sustainability sector within our defence business unit. So as I said, with the sustainability and coming from defence, you might not be able to step straight into the job you want. So consider that internal move as a planned pathway, as a strategy. Think the other thing I was going to say, and I know this may come up in the questions about experience and whether enthusiasm is enough to get by on. I do have a list of sort of qualifications that you might want to consider trying to get if you've still got enhanced learning credits, and I'll put them in the chat shortly. But I think for some of the program project jobs, there is an amount of having a good understanding of the environment, of the sustainability environment, what's going on, is enough to get you through that first step. I've recruited ex-forces people to join my team, and I knew that they weren't going to come in with sustainability qualifications. What I needed them for, and the reason I was recruiting them, was because they had an understanding of defence. But what I wanted was a passion for sustainability. But I would caveat all that with saying you've got a passion is one thing, actually showing it in a provable way is another. I've mentioned LinkedIn, and I know BuildForce will probably do sessions on how to maximize your profile on LinkedIn. But remember that at the very bottom of your LinkedIn profile is your interests, top voices, companies, groups, newsletters. When I was recruiting, I would look at somebody's LinkedIn profile, but I'd go to the bottom, and unless there's a good scattering of sustainability topics and companies and newsletters within that grouping, then I would be very suspicious about somebody who says they're passionate about sustainability, but actually on the probably the number one professional social network, they don't have any sustainability within their interests. So use LinkedIn wisely. Make sure that when you're saying you're passionate and believe in something, that you've gone out and are able to show that within those. And that's aside from the fact that LinkedIn has lots of really useful networks and ex-defense networks in sustainability and sustainable energy generation. I think then the only other thing, and is preparing for interview, and maybe this is going a little bit off the sustainability piece and into a more general set of points about your transition. But I feel, as I said, I have recruited and I've interviewed a lot of ex-forces, and I think there are a few sort of key issues that you want to have really prepped, because the CV is the gateway to get you an interview, and I've seen a lot of really good CVs, but then those people have not done so well at interview because they haven't really prepared properly. Some of them are obvious. Check your background. You might want to hide everything in the background, or you might even want to plant stuff in the background. Again, if you say you're into sustainability, it's an environmentalism. It's an opportunity to put something there to show that and to think about that. Prepare your answers. One of the real advantages of working online here, working the way we are now, is actually you can only see me and what's behind me. I've got a Word document sat in the middle of my screen, which has got a lot of notes on it for me. You can have notes all the way around your screen. So really prepare not just your answers mentally, but prepare them physically around your desk. It's such an easy thing to do, and the interviewer will have been none the wiser about how you did it. But it just will make life so much easier for you. When you're given questions, I think even if they don't say, give an example of when, you should always give an example of when. It's just such an easy thing to do and really strengthens every answer you give. And then finally, on that, examples, I think from your military background, from your life story, come up with 3 or 4 really strong examples of things that you've done, and then bend the question to fit that scenario. What I've often had is I've asked a question and there's a minute's worth of silence while the person runs through their entire life in the back of their mind, trying to think of the very best scenario for it. It's probably far better that they give me a second best scenario, but they come up with it really, really quickly. And simply, rather than something really good, but it's taken them 3 or 4 minutes to think of it. I know that's sort of been a bit more of a general view of sort of how I got here, and a sort of general set of points about transition from the military. I sort of stuck to those mainly because, and I will go on, I don't have any qualifications in sustainability. I have experience and understanding of defence, and I can bring sustainability experts to defence. And ultimately, that's how I operate. That's how we operate. And I think if you consider it from a military point of view, you will have technical experts in things, and you will bring them forward to do a job, and move it on. And essentially, that's kind of the way I operate. So I think what I'm trying to say is, don't worry if you don't have the qualifications. You're all being military. You're all good at project managing people, and that is some of the skill sets that actually these companies want. Once you're there, then you can start to look at, are there sustainability qualifications that you really need to be better, and they can get those for you. They can invest in you, but don't be put off at the fact that you don't have a qualification right now. Hopefully that's not too far off what Angela and Caroline were hoping from me. Happy. I'm handing over to Andrew now, rather than.
You are, honestly, the tidbits there were epic. You veterans are so kind to each other, Andy. So you're so good to each other. We'll hand over to Andrew Waddington.
Thank you to Andy. I came in a slightly different way into sustainability, and I actually don't do sustainability. I actually do design. So from a military point of view, I joined the Army Apprentices College back in 1986 at the age of 16. I then spent 19 years doing various training courses, and I did a year loan service in Sierra Leone, which was a fantastic year. To be honest, probably the highlight of my career. And I did tours in Afghanistan and Iraq with 3 commando brigades. So I spent 19 years in total, most of that around trade. I trained as a design draftsman, and then did the military clerk of works construction course, and then spent my time going around the world to all the really nice places, practicing that and putting camps in airfields, etc. So fantastic time. Never really concentrating on environmental. It was all around, design, getting people in, and if we were to do carbon assessments on getting materials delivered by aircraft, I don't think it'd come out very well. So from there, when I left in 2005, it was a time where there weren't people like BuildForce around to help you make that transition. So when I left, it's quite a difficult place because you kept applying for jobs, and it was like, social housing jobs that you could do. You've got the skill set to do it. It's about managing a process, managing people, really, things that nobody's firing at you. There's no bombs going off anywhere. You know you can do it, but they want 2 years, 3 years experience in that sector. So I got a lucky break with an interview for Barratt Homes as a senior site manager, and I progressed there up to project manager, who had a niece in the military and knew the skill set that they bring outside of just construction. So I worked at Barratt for 18 months doing senior site manager and then project manager role. And that was a fantastic first job, because I learned all the bits that we don't normally do. So all the bits around curtain walling, lifts, tower cranes, the logistics are different, party wall awards, things that you don't do in the military. I learned that there, and it filled a lot of knowledge gaps that I had, which then when I left there, I went to BAM as a design manager. I spent 6 years there doing various projects, quite a lot of academies in and around Medway. I then also, when I left there, I went to Mansell, which became part of the Balfour Beatty Group. Did time there. Then I went to Carillion and did a couple of jobs there. One up in King's Cross, the gas holders project at King's Cross, which was a fantastic grade 2 listed frame around the gas holders, and we put accommodation, residential in and amongst that, and then rebuilt the frame around it, having had it all repaired. I then left there, went to Westfield to deliver Westfield South London in Croydon, and then with COVID hitting and the retail market changing to more online, it got put on hold. I got made redundant, and 4 years ago I started with Morgan Sindall. And since I've been with Morgan Sindall, I've delivered projects on site. I've delivered and done quite a lot of pre-tender work, so the pre-construction side of element of it. But I've also, while I've been here, I'm noticing, more and more around the sustainability side coming through in the design into from clients who are now requesting more and more the environmental side of things. The criteria is getting tighter. They want, greener buildings, and that's because everybody is looking at their own carbon footprint, and they don't want to be in buildings that leak, and are not carbon efficient and cost them a lot of money to run and affects their carbon footprint. So we were getting a lot of projects coming through with Passive House, either certified or certainly Passive House credentials, and following their principles. So to make sure I understood it, I went and did the Passive House Designers course. Again, sponsored by the company. They gave me the time to do it. They sponsored me through it. They paid for it. Probably the hardest 3-hour exam I've ever done, but it was worth it. I'm now a Passive House designer. It means I can challenge the Passive House designers and design teams. I can advise clients, with a proper understanding around it. I also did the BREEAM Associate course, and we'll be doing the BREEAM Appointed Person course. So again, it's constantly, once you're with a company, you can progress, you can do more courses. If you've got an inkling in something, we've got 6 of our design managers are all BREEAM APs, and they use that alongside their day job, and benefits them in what they do and in the assessments. And hopefully next year I'll be going for Chartered Environmentalist. So fingers crossed that, as you can see, it's a continual progression throughout. So just to put it into a little bit of context, a lot of those targets I've talked about is legally binding net zero target for the UK of 2050, Scotland by 2045. So that's what's driving a lot of this. A lot of where we do public projects, a lot of the public councils have claimed climate emergency. So therefore, they're trying to decarbonise as well. And what we do, delivering their estate for them, we help them reduce that and hit their targets at the same time. So some of the credentials as a company, you can see there's quite a few things that we're accredited to. Being on the CPD A list is difficult one to get, but we've got it. And we were also the first construction company to be hit the science-based targets. So everything we do, we don't say we're doing it. It's actually science-based targets. It's actually assessed on a regular basis for what we do and what we deliver. That was the journey. So in 2010, sustainability roadmap, and you can see there, I'm not going to take you through all of those. Some of those elements I'll cover a bit further down the line. With the target of being net zero by 2030, so 20 years ahead of the UK target. And then being net zero across the entire value chain. So that includes our supply chain as well by 2045. So just by a lot of what we do is around carbon, but it's not just carbon, but there's the embodied carbon, and that's everything that's involved in the construction process, from mining of the materials, processing of the materials, all the way through to us handing the keys over to the client. So that's the embodied carbon. And then you've got the operational phase, which we designed for, that we can't control, because that's when the client and the end users occupy the building. So that's the heating, cooling, ventilation. We can design to it, but if they don't operate the building in the way that it's been designed, i.e. they leave all the lights on, they bring heaters in, etc., then it never operates in quite the same way. But when you add those two together, that gives you the whole life carbon around it. So as you can see there, that's the cumulative performance in relation to Carbonica, which I'll come on to a little bit later. So we're using that on more and more projects now. Carbon savings, which are evidenced, you can see there, is increasing. The construction waste is going down, which is always a good thing. And we target to get that even lower, constantly working with suppliers on updating details, so the likes of British Gypsum, so that we're not wasting boards, throwing them in the skip and getting them recycled. We just don't have the waste in the original design. And also the own carbon footprint of the company. So outside of that, what we've also done is we invest in the environment as well. So the Blenheim Estate, we're in the process of planting 270,000 trees. And that's going to then form a public area where people can go, they can walk around, there'll be cycle routes, there'll be footpaths, and there's also going to be an education centre to then start educating schools, school children, etc., in what environmental is. Lakenheath, we purchased 54 hectares, and that was then donated to the RSPB as an extension to their nature reserve, allowing it to regenerate. And also the Northern Bogs, where we're going to restore the depleted bog areas. That's going to get in North Yorkshire, so that's all getting put back as it should be, because peat bogs are obviously one of the greatest sinks for carbon. So what we also have done is we've taken a school that we delivered, and then we went back and put a design team to exactly the same school, but instead of designing it around a cost plan, we then looked at it, if we were designing it with sustainability in mind, what could we achieve? And those are the figures that you see there. That's what we're 67% reduction in whole carbon and 72% reduction in the upfront carbon. So you can see that when you design along that line, it can be done, and you can hugely reduce the carbon footprint and the operational of a building. And what we've done recently, and we've only just got to these figures, is we sat down and did the whole school again, but using regenerative. So rather than changing from, say, a steel frame to timber, which we did on the previous one, the regenerative twin allowed you to take second-hand steel that's already had its carbon footprint, it's been inside a building, you take it out, you reuse it and put it in. And again, we get 84% reduction on the whole life carbon, 66% on the upfront carbon. So again, you can see there that you can reduce those figures down. This was one of our projects in London. It was a 200-year-old building, and we reduced the carbon by 75%. On the pictures on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see on the brown is the pulpit from the church, and on the right-hand side, how it was repurposed into a kitchen. And these are things that we keep in mind. How can we reuse the existing materials? Can we reuse them? Can we donate them to charities so that they can reuse them? So it saves them being processed and also saves them going to waste and benefits others as well. This was on a new build. We saved 798 tonnes of carbon, again, by looking at the design and the design solutions. We went on this one from steel frame to a timber frame by a company called Strife UK, and they manufactured locally as well. So what that had, it also then meant there was an 85% reduction in large vehicle movements as well. Again, benefiting the community by keeping the footprint down. Where I mentioned Carbonica previously, Carbonica is software that we started working on in 2017 and have been progressing ever since. And this allows us to assess the embodied carbon and also the operational carbon. It also provides suggestions on how you can improve the carbon and reduce the carbon within it, giving you alternative materials. And at the end of it, to get the as-built, we also look at, instead of just doing it from the model, which is all very nice rectangles, the piles are all perfect cylinders on the model, and it gives you a volume. We also then, at the end of the project, we then go back and use real-time data. So if we were looking at the piles, for example, it tells us how much concrete went in, because we use the delivery notes, not a modelled volume. So we know the actual concrete that went in, and it also includes the last pour of the day, used 2 cube, 4 cube goes in a skip, gets broken up and used as hardcore material. It accounts for that 4 cube that otherwise would be accounted for. So it gives us real-time figures and allows us to, the site setup, the operation of the cabins, etc., is all done on there as well. We also engage with our supply chain, our consultants, and we run 4 times a year a 10-ton carbon challenge. So we challenge all our site teams. So that's everybody to come up with suggestions of ways of saving at least 10 tonne of carbon on their projects. And that's anything from using eco cabins, which we do on all our projects now, through to having a wind turbine to provide power for the turnstile for getting in and out, etc. So some of the, and down to materials, etc. So really good challenges, gets everybody involved in the carbon journey. And we also upskill within the communities. So we have social value managers who go out into the community, into schools, and that we're part of the carbon literacy project. So we go in and we educate future generations around carbon, how they can help, what they can do to help and save the planet. And those youngsters are very keen on taking part in that. So the roles within the business, we have a director of social value and sustainability who is an ex-design manager, who then has a central team who report directly to him, of a sustainability analyst, decarbonisation manager and sustainability administrator. And then what we have, around the country, within each of the regions, we have sustainability managers. And then as a second job, we also have carbon champions, of which I'm a carbon champion for the London region. So that when the site teams have done their assessments on Carbonica, they come through to the carbon champions for auditing to make sure that everything's completed correctly, and it's then audited before it goes to final publication. But it's not just down to those people in relation to the carbon footprint. So our supply chain managers work very closely with the supply chain and looking at new materials, new methods, new construction methods, and then they help the rest of the team keep updated on that. The design managers are quite heavily involved, as you can imagine, in specification of materials, how it all goes together, alongside the consultants of design teams and our own in-house consultancy at Baker Hicks, who will assist us if we need it in doing assessments or auditing those assessments. Quantity surveyors are also heavily involved, because when it comes down to quantities for doing the takeoffs, they're the ones that know the figures better than anybody else. And also our social value managers are also involved when they're rolling out that training, as well as part of that carbon literacy programme. And that's me. I shall stop sharing.
Andrew, that insight was incredible. Thank you very much for that. That was amazing. If I can ask Andy to switch his camera back on, Caroline to switch her camera on. If you have any questions, please write it in the box. That's your first question. Want to put your camera on or volume? Hi.
I was trying to word the question in the chat, and thought it's probably just easier to say it. Really interesting presentations, thank you. Can I just ask that it's sort of a slightly different view from you both in terms of whether to look for career and roles in a professional focused position with an organisation for sustainability, or, as Andrew, you just talked about, some of the other roles which might be involved in project delivery but also sustainability as well. So I'd just be interested to hear your sort of perspectives on, you know, going into a professional sustainability, that's what I'm doing 100% of my role, versus going into another different role, maybe working on projects where sustainability is an important part of that, but it's not the only thing that you're doing. Just your thoughts on what those differences would be.
I think certainly from our side, you know, we have the sustainability managers. Those are the ones who are only doing sustainability, and they're going out to the site teams. They're helping educate, but that one person can't do it alone. You know, you have to then, you know, it does come down to the whole team helping to deliver against that. So, you know, carbon does affect everybody in the business. You know, it's down to, you know, how you travel. You know, we have a lot of people, you know, cycling, and, you know, public transport, especially being in London, it's public transport is very easy. But yeah, everybody has an influence on that from within the business. I don't know about you, Andrew, from your side.
Yeah, so ultimately we will have a number of major projects like Morgan Sindall, construction, and each one of those projects will have a sustainability team on it. So from our defence side of the business, Devonport, AWE, US visiting forces, those are all big projects, and they will have sustainability experts helping those teams deliver. Where I sit, and whilst I've got sight of that, where I sit is more, it's not sustainability as part of a project, it's sustainability is the project. So, for example, you know, we are helping Defence Support with their sustainable support strategy, which came out a couple of years ago. It's got a number of initiatives, and we're helping them work out how do you go from a strategy to something more tangible. We were part of the team that helped write the Defence Operational Energy Strategy, and we're developing that now with the Operational Energy Authority to there's an energy transition happening. Defence can't ignore it. How does it do it? So we would have a mixture of sustainability experts working on what I would probably describe as more traditional projects that are in defence, and then sustainability experts who are working on sustainability projects in defence, because there's a lot of those coming too.
And just sorry, yeah, it's a good question, Matt. Just on that, Andy, is that all within the construction business, or the sustainability roles more within the PM consultancy side? So
they're all within the PM consultancy side, but obviously they will go across to construct if when the construct side has a sustainability role. And I think it sort of gets into it's probably murky water that I don't quite understand of how much brick on brick construction Mace actually does. You know, we project manage rather than I think as the more hands-on part of that. And that's where the sustainability part of it sits. I think what might, and bear with me, this is a very clunky military analogy. I would put it that, so we have a number of business units. I'm in the defense business unit. We have a central government, we have a transport, we have, you know, local government. Those business units have the project managers who are client facing. They are your infantry battalions. Behind them, we have a whole load of specialists like, you know, artillery engineers, whatever. They don't go in single groups, they go in battle groups. You get your little delivery team together and off you go together to see the client, not to fight them, but you know. And I think that's kind of where the difference lies. So I'm not a specialist in sustainability, but I understand the client's problems. I understand where we've got specialists, and I think I understand which specialist to bring forward at the right time. But in the military, again, you don't ask for a certain type of thing. You ask for an effect, and that's kind of the way we work it. So there's sort of different levels of understanding and expertise, in the same there's different levels of client exposure and client interface.
And what is it you think you're brilliant at, Andy? What is your USP? Because there's so many people listening to this that are going to want to do what you do. So if you were to sell yourself, what would you say you're great at?
I mean, myself now and everyone on this call, I would say from from what I've seen, your number one selling point is you're such a good manager of people and of tasks. And I think even when I left the military, completely underestimated that. I've run projects and I've given opportunities to sustainability experts, really clever people, graduates, and they've crashed badly because they're not the managers and the task managers that you've all had through your training, be it at Sandhurst, Holton, Dartmouth, you know, all those places where you did all those, what at the time may have seemed like silly tasks with planks and ropes and whatever it was. That's really what cuts you apart. And the good companies, the companies like Mace, the Gold Award Armed Forces companies, those are the ones that have recognized that X-Forces is a huge source of really talented managers and will turn their hand to anything. And I maybe that's a bit gushing, but that's kind of the truth. Your other unique selling point is you've all got a level of security clearance, and to work in defence and work in many other sectors, you need a security clearance, and you're essentially walking out with one. And defence problems. I know maybe that's a bit too simple, but that's the unique selling point that I think everyone on this call has. That's easy to sell, and then you get in, and then you look, if you're not happy with the job, there's another job you want that requires qualifications, then you look for that internal move. And I've seen that happen plenty.
Thanks, Andy. Matt, does that answer your question?
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks for that. Andy, just on one thing you said there at the start of your presentation, you were talking about do your research into the employer. Why did Mace stand out for you? Why did you opt for that route?
I think Mace stood up for me because of the net zero thing. And for back in 2020, for a construction firm to have achieved that, they put a lot of effort into that. You know, that was not a let's do this as a PR stunt. That's pretty substantial. And ultimately, I found out I knew some people who were there, so I got in touch with them and said, "What's Mace like as a company?" and they said it's a good company to work for. You know, I think a lot of companies, a lot of elements in the military may say they're people first.
Yeah.
And I can't see any faces right now, but there's probably some sniggering when I say that. I'd like to think they say you're people first until the desk officer turns around and says, I've got a new job for you, and it's the most important job he has to fill that day. So yeah, that's what stood out for me, and I think, you know, that's kind of what you're doing. And when you join the military, you don't necessarily. You do join a cat badge. The ethos around that cat badge is important too. So why would you not do it as a company? Why would you not care about the company you're trying to join?
Okay, and we've got a couple of candidates who are interested in the sustainability piece, and probably in their minds, they've told themselves, I'll probably have to go down a structured grad route. Is that the best way to start out? Is that what employers are going to do? Or for the adults transitioning, do they just learn as they... Is that to Andy? Sorry.
Sorry. So if you've got the time and the money and the effort to go and get a degree level qualification in sustainability, then that's fabulous. There are a lot of them out there, but not all of us have the time. I certainly didn't have the time and the enhanced learning credits to do it when I was leaving. I did put in the chat a few of the sort of shorter qualifications and courses you can do. I know Andrew mentioned Bream and a few others. I think, I can't remember which one. I think the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment. There's they do a string of shorter courses that you can do, and sort of pathway courses that you could probably do quite quickly and with not as much money as it takes to get a degree nowadays. So those are worth looking at, I think. As you know, for those who don't have the time and money to go and get a full-on bachelor's of environmental sustainability or something. Andrew, I assume with where you're working, you know, it's much more construction, civil engineering, and degrees matter.
Yeah, it's. I mean, for us, it's more about experience. As well, so it doesn't necessarily come down to a degree. A lot of it comes down to actual experience. But what I find is that you know, and this is a message I regularly send to our project managers who are interviewing for, you know, project manager or site manager, senior site manager roles, is that when you come from the military, it's a different skill set that they bring, but a unique skill set. The technology part, you know, learning around, you know, what curtain walling is, you can do that. We have our own internal academy. You can go on there. You can do courses in that. We can put you with the subcontractor and you can work on that for 2 weeks. You can fill those knowledge gaps quite quickly, and therefore with the skill set that you bring, you start floating to the top quite quickly in a promotion. So even if you come in as a site manager, you can quite quickly go up to project manager, etc. But people will see your ability over and above, and we can train. You know, I continually do courses, one because I've started enjoying it for some really strange reason, but you know, it just benefits. And then when I'm sitting with client teams, like I said, you know, a lot of London boroughs have claimed a climate emergency, but they've got project managers in there who are dealing on a day-to-day basis. They don't know what it means. So we're educating clients along the way because they don't fully understand what they need to deliver. So we're helping them as well to, you know, to decarbonise and hit their targets as part of their journey as well as ours.
And Andrew, just a question to you, just on a kind of coach and mentoring space, if there are candidates that are just a little thrown at the moment and aren't quite finding that fit upon leaving, or that role upon leaving the armed forces, what advice would you give to them, kind of reflecting back in your own career?
Quite difficult, you know, it is quite a difficult transition, and, you know, at the end of the day, you spend a lot of time at work, you've got to enjoy it. So whatever it is you want to go into it because you want to do it. You spend a lot of time away from your family because you're working. It's got to be worth it, and job fulfillment it's, yes, we've all got bills to pay, but you can get paid a fortune if you hate getting up and going into work every day. It's not worth it. So it's worth finding the job that suits you. And if you really want to get into that environmental space and sustainability, it is coming more and more. We've now got 10% biodiversity that we have to hit as well. So it's not just the construction companies, the consultancies, there are people out there around, landscape, and there are sustainability specialists. So it might be worth having a look at them as well, outside of the construction industry. And they're the ones that are advising people, as Andy's doing from within his consultancy, helping clients. Clients will, if they don't know, they'll Google, and then, these companies come up and they have consultants and sustainability specialists. Think about going on that side of it as well as just on, directly into the construction part.
Brilliant, thanks, Andrew. And just on one thing you said there, if you're recruiting in that space, are they environmental managers? Are they sustainability managers? Is there a difference between the two?
Sustainability managers, they cover, either the region or part of the region, depending on how big and how many projects we have online. But yeah, they help advise the site teams. And again, a lot of the collection of data, making sure targets are hit, come down to the site team. But the sustainability managers are guiding those people to make sure that they hit their targets, and all the KPIs that we have, making sure the reporting is getting done in the correct way.
And that was picking up on Matt's point, wasn't it? There's other routes into this. If you've got a passion or an interest in sustainability, you can still be a site manager or a safety manager, because there's lots of overlaps, isn't there? So
I've got a design manager who was a graduate, and she's really into environmental, and she's loving the design side of it, because she realizes that that's a role where you can really influence the sustainability of a building by influencing material choices, methodologies of construction, and she's loving it. And she just keeps doing more courses, the same as I'm doing, and gaining more knowledge, which then means it all feeds back into the next project and the next project.
okay, I think both of you kind of referenced England by 2050 and Scotland by 2045 in terms of net zero. Ludo's actually asked a really good question. Do we think this new government is going to honour those dates, or do we think it's going to be a slow burn that will concertina out? Is sustainability the way to go? Is that the career of the future, or do you think it's going to slow down a bit? Ask you first, Andy.
I mean, the problem is 2050 and 2045 or whatever number it is. It's very far away, and it's a single target. There are a whole load of targets and things that need to be done beforehand. If Defence wrote a number of sustainability strategies. In that they did their usual Epoch 1, Epoch 2, Epoch 3. 2025 is the end of Epoch 1 and the start of Epoch 2, and defence is not ready. And for in the public sector, they're not unusual in that space. So there needs to be a ramping up in order to achieve even that 2050 target. I think the problem is at the moment that there's no steps. The government hasn't laid out steps of how to reach 2050. And when there's no steps, no one's willing to step forward. We're doing some commercial work within defence, trying to create a set of key user requirements targets. And it's really difficult because everyone wants to do it, but no one wants to step ahead of the pack. And that makes it really awkward. And that's why it almost requires the private sector, companies like Mason, Morgan Sindall, to step up and go beyond what is asked to show that it can be done, to show it's not just that it's the right thing to do, to show that sustainability saves money. You know, there's a lot to be achieved from it. From a defence point of view, it's about resilience. It's about being able to carry on doing what you're doing. So I think does the government need to do more? Yeah, it does need to do more. Will there be more? I think there probably will be, and it will ramp up. The only thing I would say is, you know, whilst this is, some people say this is the current bandwagon, and when I say to somebody I work in sustainability, I go, oh, yeah, whatever. As Andrew said, you gotta believe in it. This is not a space to join just because it's the latest. Hopefully, it's not the latest fad. It is a fad. It's going to keep going. You still got to believe in it, because actually some of the stuff was a bit hard reading if you're not interested in it.
And it sits within at the heart of the culture of Morgan Sindall, doesn't it, Andrew? It's important, very much important to your business.
Business unit actually gets taxed on how much carbon they use as a business unit, and that goes across the sites. So that money is then reinvested into the projects that you know I had on the screen earlier. But if you don't lower your own carbon footprint, but I think in relation to 2050, I think it's, from memory, I think it's tied to the Paris Agreement. But you know, we need to just look at, you know, are we going to stop the 1.5 degrees heating, you know, around the world? You look at what's going on, the floods, the fires and everything else. You know, or are we, you know, if we don't start doing it and start doing it quickly, then, you know, we're up to two degrees, then we're up to 2.5 degrees. And you look at the impacts of that across the world. But again, it's, you know, it's also, there's a lot of education to be done. You know, you can have a passive house property and it's fantastic. It's got no air leaks. It's down to 0.6 on the air test. It's thermally efficient. It's got triple glazing. It's got all that. But people's mindset, if you move them into it from a normal house, they want to open the window. So they open the window. So it's a mind change on how to operate these systems that we're putting in, which are efficient systems, but unless you can change the mindset that goes with it, then they operate them in a poor way, and therefore, and also we've got a huge building stock throughout the country, which is not thermally efficient and not airtight. To do anything against that stock, it's, you know, new build we can do. Existing is completely different, especially on a housing level.
Okay, a question from Andrew's come in just on the trade side. So he's asking about the test and repair department. So again, within the plant operators and within some of our businesses, Andrew, they do. So we can get you connected there. Mohesh, I think you were asking about PM roles within construction. If you don't come from a construction background, yes, that's definitely an option for you. And Vicky Harris, are there strategic operation planners to work within the projects or teams? Either of you on that one?
We do strategic operations. We have project managers who do all the logistics planning, and we have planners who do the program for it alongside the logistics, tying it all in with approvals and everything else. So certainly we don't have that higher level strategic operations planners. I don't know about yourself, Andrew.
Yeah, I think if it's logistics and you're talking about the logistics and planning of around a construction, then yeah, definitely within the construction side of the business. If you're talking strategic planning with regards to sustainability, then yes, again, we've got a business advisory unit that used to be called Strategic Advisory. I don't know why they changed the name, and they help with a lot of those things. And working up sustainability strategies for companies and for local authorities and so on.
Okay, well, listen, thank you to both of you very much for your valuable contribution today. So your transition from the armed forces to a career in environmental sustainability has been a very rewarding one, and for design for you respectively, Andrew. your military career is a great platform to start that challenging and rewarding career. So just don't undersell yourselves, and the value that you have and that you bring to our sector is immense. A big shout out to Mace and Morgan Sindel, both exemplary in what they do. Remember, you are not alone. BuildForce are here to support and help you as you transition. So please get in touch if you have any questions. I think we probably need to do another hour on this, so we'll get that scheduled in. It seems to be a really popular topic. So I hope our speakers will come back again, but I'll pass to Caroline for some final insights.
Oh, thank you, Angela. Just to echo that, BuildForce are here for you all the way, and that was invaluable. I've certainly learned a lot as well, and echo another session. Other speakers as well to add to the party. But just to say, next up, and you will be able to meet the wider Mace and the wider Morgan Sindel at our upcoming National Armed Forces Insight Day, 9th of October, in the lovely Harrogate. Morgan Sindel are hosting us, and we'll have 40 other of our employers, key employers, in the room. So it's a not to miss event, whether you're just looking for that next chapter, you're looking for ideas, you want to know more about this construction sector and the wider built environment, or if you're looking for a job, it is all there. So please don't miss out. Open to the whole military community, including spouses and dependents. So we will see you there on the 9th. Have a lovely day. And as I say, I hope the sun is shining. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.